how is everybody? Welcome, 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 and welcome Dr. Nick Thompson, and he is from Holistic Vet. He was on the very, very, very first day of the summit. Gosh, that seems like a long time ago, Dr. Nick. Thank you so much for joining us. You are from Holistic Vet. I'm just going to quickly put up your website here. We can put it up again at the end. But anybody watching, I can see there's a few people watching already. If you've got any questions, make sure you type them in the chat so we can get real answers in real time from Dr. Nick while he is here. It is the start of his working day, so we do have to be a little bit mindful of your time. So
bless you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ness. It's great to be here again. It's nice to see you. Hello, everybody. Yeah, always happy to talk about raw food.
Yes, and I mean, what you're doing, educating people about raw food is so important. So I'm going to start with a really probably easy question for you, but why should we raw feed our dogs?
You mean apart from the fact that they were designed to eat raw food?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Basically, yes.
Exactly.
You know what? This is a really easy one. And I find that owners and breeders and non-veterinary people get this very, very easily. Unfortunately, what's happened is over the last 40, 50 years or more, the big food corporations have told us that we should be feeding our dogs ultra processed food, which is just madness. Yeah, there is no sensible human nutritionist who will say to their clients, you need to eat more ultra processed food. And yet the food industry goes about spending millions and millions of dollars saying, you've got to feed this bag of food, you've got to feed these tins of food. And yet those people, then they go home, they feed family, they feed their children on real food, generally speaking. Junk, but they kind of know that they're eating junk. They do it because they're addicted to it. They do it because it's easy and what have you. But I think everybody fundamentally knows that diet is just a massive part of health. It's the foundation of health. At vet college, we're taught very little about we're taught about the nuts and bolts, the biochemistry, the physiology, and what have you. But on a practical basis, studying nutrition, which is just a vast subject, we don't study it at all. I was at college for 5 years, and as far as I can make out now, if I was designing a veterinary course, I would have at least 1 year or the equivalent of 1 year looking at nutrition, because it is the heart of disease. You know, a wise Greek once said, all disease starts in the bowel. And yet we don't talk about raw food. Well, we don't talk about nutrition very much at all. So it's been hijacked. The whole system's been hijacked by the food corporations, and they are pushing an agenda which doesn't make sense. Yeah. Processed food. There's a great book by a guy called Chris Van Tulleken. You can find him on Amazon, and he's written a book called Ultra Processed People. And it's not even about dogs. But if anybody's in any doubt as to the dangers, and I choose my words very carefully, the dangers of of eating ultra processed food, then have a read of that. It's really well written. It's a very easy book to read. I do a lot of my books on Audible because then when I'm walking the dogs, I can keep up with my reading, and it's fascinating. It's actually, Ness, it's actually just so obvious. Okay.
Yeah. Can I ask you that? You said you accidentally said the dangers of raw food, and that was my next question, because I know you didn't mean that. You mean the dangers of processed food.
Yes.
I've come across many people in my lives where I've said, you know, I advocate for raw feeding. I feed raw, and they'll be going, oh my gosh, oh no, that's dangerous. They'll get salmonella. They'll get, you know, the bones are really bad for them. They shouldn't eat that. It's dangerous stuff. Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, it's very convenient to the corporations to promote that agenda, but the science doesn't back it up, Ness. In fact, there was a paper that came out only a few days ago. Rodney Habib's been talking about this, and we've been pushing this the findings. They took 35 kibbled diets in the States, okay, and they analysed them, and they found they all had pathogenic bacteria in them, all 35 individual foods. Okay, so but just because there's bugs in kibble doesn't mean that raw food is good. So the way I look at this, and I don't want to bore anybody, but the World Small Animal Veterinary Association came out 10 years ago and said there's 4 main areas that raw food is damaging dogs. Okay, and they are sponsored by the food corporations, these people. But they came out with benefit, bugs, balance, and bones. These are the 4 criticisms: benefits, bugs, balance, and bones. So benefits, they say there's no benefits. Well, there are many scientific papers demonstrating that raw food is better. So that's that one out of the way. Benefits, bugs. Okay, they say, oh, it's dangerous because there are bugs in raw food. I'm going to say now there are bugs in raw food, but dogs have been dealing with those bugs for the last 45 million years, and then the bugs in a well-made
just 45 million years.
only 45 million years. Yeah, that's conservative. Could be 65. What's 10 million years between friends? So bugs, yes, there are bugs in there, but they're at a very low level. If you think of a wolf who's out in the savannah and they come across a carcass, they're going to eat that. And if that carcass has been sitting there for 3 days in the baking sun, then that's going to be absolutely stuffed with bacteria. If we compare that with a well-prepared raw food from one of the reputable manufacturers, the bug load is much lower. And what we find is with this low level of bugs, it just keeps on educating the gut. So we find our raw-fed dogs are much more resilient to having gut issues. Okay, so that's benefits, benefits, scientific benefits. You can look these up online. Benefits, bugs. Yeah, let's get rid of that one. Balance. The other one that they say is that all raw food diets are not balanced. So number one, there are many diets out there now from reputable manufacturers who have been formulated to be balanced. So that's number one. And number two is one of the key areas for one of the key areas in raw feeding. One of the key themes, the key phenomena is to feed variety, as dogs have been having for 45 million years. Yeah, Mother Nature always presents something different season to season. And so we're just emulating that. And it's interesting, these people say, oh, it's got to be balanced. Every meal has to be balanced. It doesn't. These people, they'll say, oh, every meal has to be balanced. They'll then go home and eat an unbalanced diet, food, whatever it is, macaroni cheese or fish with vegetables. Is that balanced? Probably not. And the way that physiology has coped with this variable input, which is the nature of eating, is it balances it out. Yeah, you have too much magnesium on a Monday, too much calcium on a Tuesday, too much fat on a Wednesday, too much protein on a Thursday. And the body says, that's fine. I can just balance it out, because the body reacts to the food that's going in. So every meal needing to be balanced, I think, is a fallacy. It comes from the food corporations, and it doesn't stand up to scientific investigation. And then finally, I've got a frog in my throat because it's so early in the morning. So the final one, but benefits, bugs, balance, and bones. Bones. Dogs have been eating bones 45 million years, and they rarely have problems. If you get in your car, there is a very slight risk of problem, and yet we get in our cars every day. And bones are exactly the same. If you have a kibble-fed dog and you give them an enormous leg bone, then they may have problems with that. Often it's the fat, the marrow bone, the classic marrow bone. they have loads of fat, they're not used to it, and they can get diarrhea and bloating and gut dysfunction. But the I do a video, actually. It's called Benefits, Bugs, Balance and Bones. No, it's not. It's called Bones and How to Feed Them. It's my video. It's on my website, which you put up earlier. And if you just educate the dog, if they're an adult dog, and there it is, if they're an adult dog and they've been eating kibble, you just have to go, right, this is primary school bones. They're quite soft. They get used to that. Then you go to secondary school bones and things like ribs, vertebrae, things like that. And then when they are veteran bone eaters, then you can feed them pretty much anything you want. It's an education process. However, if those pups have been having bones, I will feed chicken wings, turkey necks, duck necks to pups down to even 3 weeks old. Yeah, whenever they get interested in mum's raw food, they're ready for raw food, and they can have these chewy things. They've got such tiny little teeth. All they do is they just get used to the mouth feel of those necks or those chicken wings and what have you. And then gradually, as their teeth come in, they're able to ingest it. And again, you have this education system. So the criticisms are those four mainly. These are the ones that if you go to your vet, that's what they'll be hitting you with. And they are all fallacious. There is no basis to those. In fact, on the contrary, raw fed dogs, and this is what sells raw food. It's not me bleating on, every night on podcasts and what have you. It is that people give it a go because their neighbor has it, or their mother does it, or somebody does it, or maybe their vet has suggested it. That's pretty rare, but sometimes that happens. They just give it a go. And then within 2 weeks, they see that the poop is better. They see that the grumbling is better. The grass eating is better. The teeth are better. The coat is improved. Okay. And then they are sold. So raw food is great because it sells itself. Okay. Imagine if you're a parent and you take a child along to the doctor. Imagine they handed you a bag of kibble and said, here's some kiddie kibble. That's you. It's balanced and it's scientifically formulated, and that's everything you need. How ridiculous is that? But essentially, that's what the corporations want. Okay. Vets want the best for their pets. Okay. I'm not having a go at vets. It's just that they are being leaned on massively by big food. Yeah, the Nestle's, the Mars, the Colgate Palmolives. These are the big three. Nestle has Purina, Mars, the Mars bar manufacturers. Okay, you're going to trust them to feed your dog? Well, you do. Their outfit is called Royal Canin, and Colgate Palmolive are the famous Hills. Who kind of started this whole thing.
I didn't know they did. They do Hills because they manufacture soap. Isn't that their main?
Colgate Palmolive. That's where they started. Yeah. They started making soap. So you've got a soap manufacturer. You've got an ultra processed manufacturer, which is Nestle. Yeah. Do Nestle make anything that is good for humans? I don't think so. And yet we are trusting them to feed our dogs. It just makes no sense whatsoever. And on the alternative, you can go on Google and you can say good quality raw food for dogs. Boom, you'll get a dozen suppliers in Australia, in Europe, in America. There's some great manufacturers out there. And that's the way to start, is to speak to the manufacturer and say, right, listen, I've got Charlie. He's a staffy. He's 20 kilos. Can you help me feed him? And they'll go, fine, we'll send something through. Charlie loves it. He gets onto it. Teeth improve, bowel improve, coat improves, everything improves. Behavior calms because he's not getting a high carbohydrate diet, and they improve. And it's boom, slam dunk. That's how it works in the real world. Okay, it's a wonderful area to be in, because I see dogs with skin problems and bowel problems and behavior problems, and I see these guys every single day. I have these conversations, pancreatitis as well, and the answer, very boringly for most, almost every single one is to feed a raw or fresh food diet. Some people just cannot bring themselves to feed raw, in which case there are some lightly cooked products out there which you can use. But I'd say for me, if it was up to me, I would have most dogs in the UK on raw if I could possibly help it. And we're getting there.
Janet, I just went and had a look in the Facebook group, because I can't see who commented, but is Janet. She said she loved your talk on Monday, which is
thank you,
nice.
Janet. Thank you.
Janet,
really
if you've got any questions, or anybody else got any questions, ask them now.
On Monday, well, we recorded it before, but that was with the lovely Dr. Judy Morgan, and I had 17 points on my notes, and between us, over an hour, we got through the first 2 on pancreatitis, because we always,
I believe
we're talking about this, but then we bring in this and this and this, and we're questioning each other and what have you. She's organising a big health nutrition summit in Orlando in October. We're all going to be going over there and getting together and talking about great nutrition, raw food, and we're really excited about that.
Yeah, I interviewed her for my first summit, and yeah, she's very passionate about raw feeding, just like you are. So, as somebody wanting to start out in raw feeding, or maybe let's actually
raw fooding. I like that, Ness. Yeah, raw fooding.
Looking at my note, which says I'm saying why raw food. Anyway, Dory, I'm getting myself all tangled up. So, how does somebody that maybe is raw feeding know that they've got it right? Well, you know, if they're doing it themselves.
The dog is alive, and the dog is looking really, really healthy. Yeah, you don't need to be a vet. You know when your dog is healthy. You know when your dog is satisfied and eating well, and you're doing it right. It is possible to get it wrong. You know, if you feed nothing but liver to your dog, then you're going to get into problems. If you have any pup and you just feed them on mince, without any bone in it, you just go down to the local supermarket and you feed them mince, you're going to get into problems. But that's not raw feeding. Raw feeding is recognizing that dogs are mainly carnivorous. They can eat plants when they have to, but that's more survival food as opposed to let's be healthy for generation after generation. And if we recognize that they are eating prey of one sort or another, then that's what we're trying to emulate. We're trying to get, some skin in there, if we can get eyes and lung and heart and liver and muscle and all sorts. Eyes are difficult, but if you feed little sprats, little dried sprats, they've got eyes in them. Okay, they look at you as you feed the dog. So it's dogs are not chefs. They will eat any animal-based food that you give them. Now, there are some dogs who can't tolerate chicken because the corporations have been over using ultra-processed chicken for years and years and years. And the same with beef, and the same with wheat. I don't feed wheat to any dog. But if you're just starting out, number one, talk to one of the manufacturers in your country. We do some work with Indonesia, for example. So many countries now are offering these things, and you just talk to them and say, right, how do I start? And I would suggest, I've done it in my video, which is raw feeding the basics. It says, that when you started driving, you had a driving instructor, and they were with you for a few weeks, maybe a couple of months, and then you went on your own. That's how you do it with raw food. You allow the manufacturer to formulate something for you, and you work within that range. And then you might want to start creating a diet based on those very simple principles yourself. Okay. And you will be including skin and liver and muscle and bone and the eyes on your little tiny fish, what have you. Full of like and sardines. Yeah, for sure. So it's actually very easy. I'm really tempted to write a book of raw feeding without tears or something, because it's because there's a lot of books out there and they just make it really complicated. But actually, and then people go home and feed themselves. It really is a simple thing, and I think we need to. And Ian Billinghurst, who's the father, along with Tom Lonsdale, the father of raw food. He's in Australia. God bless him. And he you know, he's been promoting raw food for 40 years, the 1980s, and he is now saying, listen, keep it simple. Just keep it simple. It's food. It's not, you know, a microchip. It's we're feeding our dogs. We're going to be sensible, and the thing that prevents the getting an excess or deficiency is you feed variety. If you feed beef mince and nothing else, you're going to run into problems. But any type of variety, taking some advice from your raw feeding vet or from friends who are experienced, they will tell you it's not a complex thing.
No, it doesn't have to be hard, and I think that's what puts people off. They feel like there's too much, it's insurmountable, don't know where to start. But I love that, you know, there's so many pre-packaged raw food things now that you can. I think someone's just said yes, a book, please. Yeah, totally. I wonder if that's Janet. I don't know.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Woman after my own heart. Yeah. Books. You can never have enough books. I'm reading the Carnivore Diet by Paul Saladino at the moment. The Carnivore Code, actually, it's called, and absolutely fascinating. And he's saying that humans do really, really well on eating an animal-based diet, and that animals, if they don't want to be eaten, they run away. Yeah. But plants, they don't, because they can't run away, and so they produce all these chemicals to make them less attractive to be eaten. Things like oxalates, phytates, phytoestrogens. Okay, it's like, and these react when the plant is stressed, when the plant is being attacked. Okay, so these are potentially toxic. So I think that one has to be careful with, and you know, feeding plants. I have been advocating that for years, but I'm just thinking about whether we should be either fermenting the vegetables that we put in, you know, using sauerkraut and stuff. You can buy those at the supermarket these days. Maybe because the fermentation will downgrade any phytotoxins, plant toxins, or very likely cooked in order to take out the problems that we get with some of these things. I haven't formulated it. That's kind of where I'm going in my head, because if you think of it, if there's any vegetable material that wolves and dingoes and what have you eat, it's usually been passaged through a herbivore, and therefore it has had a degree of fermentation and a degree of processing, a degree of breakdown, and so that's where they're getting it. So watch this space, but I'm tending towards don't go with raw, go with lightly cooked or fermented, even better, fermented. Yeah, because then you're really emulating the gut of a herbivore.
Someone else says a book would be great and a visit to Australia. There you go.
Yeah, if you organise it, I'll come. I love Australia. I really love Australia. There's a great there's a great guy called Matt Muir, Dr. Matt Muir, who's doing some great stuff. He's got a lightly cooked product because he for dogs, and he figures that the mountain to climb to convince vets to feed raw is too high, and so he's going for a more acceptable product, which is a lightly cooked product, and he's a whiz, an absolute whiz. If you can see him on YouTube, do so. Dr. Matt Muir, Matthew, so in Australia, you're in good shape there. So I'd love to come over. I've got cousins in Brisbane, and yeah, so it'd be great. And Sharonika.
Hello, Sharonika. She's a friend of mine.
Okay, hey Sharonika. Are the best bones to get rid of relatively prevalent tartar buildup on your dog's teeth? Okay, well, actually, talking of Australia in 2016, Marx, M-A-R-X, like Carl, no relation, I presume. He did a study, and within 2 weeks, he was finding that the teeth improved, even in 2 weeks, by feeding bone. So check out his paper. It's only a small study, but it is a study. It's another one of these studies that the World Small Animal Veterinary Association says that we don't have. And so what are the best bones to get rid of tartar buildup on the dog's teeth? So the answer is have a look at the video. The video is bones and how to feed them. You'll find it on my website, Shronica. And you start with the softer end of things. So you'll start with chicken carcass, turkey carcass, and then you'll graduate to perhaps duck necks, turkey necks, chicken necks, chicken wings, things like that. And then you go into ribs and the slightly harder, and only really at the end for the veteran dog will you be feeding leg bones, because leg bones are really strong, they're really brittle, and they can break. So they need a certain skill to address them. But if you start in primary school, you know, how many people do you know who take flying lessons and jump in a fighter jet? Yeah, you don't. You start in a little Cessna
or a Ferrari.
You move your way up. Yeah, how many people, you know, jump in and start reading Karl Marx? You don't. You start with Peter and Jane, and then you read Enid Blyton, and you think it's education. It's education. But Ness, you feed raw. Tell me how you feed your dogs, because I think that would be.
Now you're putting me on the spot. Sometimes I buy the pre-packaged stuff just because I often wonder whether I'm getting the balance quite right, so I add that into their diet just to make sure it's all done. They get things like chicken frames, duck wings, roux meat. I don't feed roux meat so much in the summer because it's a heating meat. It kind of heats them up. So I don't have a dog that's prone to hot spots now, but I have had Rottweilers in the past and I had to cut out the roux meat in the summer. Cool. Things like eggs, sardines, all these good stuff, bit of offal. We are getting some more questions coming through.
Yeah, just talking about that, everybody, and I'll tell you now, and everybody I talk to, literally 100% of people, when they start feeding raw, they are terrified because they've had the corporations whispering in their ears. You know, as a kid, we had pedigree chum, and they slice it and goes onto the chopping block, and it's 8 out of 10 breeders prefer pedigree chum. Yeah, we've had that whispering. You know, there is no such thing as dog food. Okay, dog food is just the waste that some corporation is trying to make money on to feed to your dog. Is that where you really want to go? I would suggest that's not a great idea. If you talk to your regular vet, they'll probably say, because they haven't been trained, just like I wasn't particularly trained in raw food, in nutrition at all, they'll say, well, the corporation says this is good for kidney disease, this is good for maintenance, this is good for puppies. Okay, and it's a real shame because dogs do so well on raw food, and it's a joy. You know, if you're feeding a dog and they're not very appetent, they're like, yeah, I'll eat it, maybe I'll eat it later, and what have you. You give them raw food, they're going to be into it, they're going to love you like it's their birthday every day. Seriously, they're going to absolutely go crazy. Okay, and the joy that brings to the kitchen once a day, twice a day, is to behold. And it's not difficult. There are people out there like me. I'll hold your hand. Yeah, it's fine. It's easy. It's joyful, and it's healthful. Yeah, the Americans talk about healthful, and it's a word that I'm kind of taking up these days. Recipes for fermented foods. Okay, Facebook user recipes. You don't need a recipe. You're going to be putting in 5 to 15% fermented foods. Yeah, go to the supermarket, get some sauerkraut, and you know, without any added extras, we make sauerkraut here. And basically, you just get cabbage, and you shred it, and you put it into a jar. You weight it down with a little bit of water. it ferments itself. You don't even need to add salt or anything, and it comes out tasting salty and amazing. And it's, you know, you have it as a relish almost with food for humans, and you just give something of that to the dog. It's as simple as that. So I'm leaning towards fermented foods. You can ferment them yourselves. You can get books on fermenting foods. It's not a difficult thing to do. If it goes wrong, which is rare, you can see it. It either smells bad or it goes funny color. And you just chuck that out. Go to the supermarket, get some sauerkraut or some kimchi. If your dog can take a little bit of chili, then there's kimchi, which the Koreans have been eating, which is massively healthful. It's good for the bowel, it's anti-cancer, it's good for the immune system. Yeah, if it's good for all these guys, why isn't it good for your dog? So I'm kind of leaning towards, and this is because of Paul Saladino. Check him out on YouTube. Paul Saladino, the Carnivore Code. I'm not getting commission on that, unfortunately, but he's saying we humans do really, 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 really well on a mainly animal-based diet, and that he's saying a plant-based diet. You're basing your diet, if you are having a plant-based diet, you're basing it on organisms who produce prodigious amounts of chemicals, which say don't eat me, don't eat me, don't eat me. Yeah, phytates, oxalate. Oxalates are such a big thing. He does an entire chapter on oxalates. I never even realized. I read a book a week on nutrition, and I have been for years, and I didn't realize how high spinach, for example, massive oxalate production. Yeah, your body, you and I make a tiny bit of oxalate, and we're good at getting rid of it. But if you eat loads and loads and loads, you can get problems. Phytates bind zinc, so you can get zinc responsive dermatoses. Yeah, disease that needs zinc to be put back in. Why is the zinc not there in the first place? Well, you've got to look at your diet. So all this stuff is it's amazing. If there was one food stuff that I could take to a desert island, as well as just meat, okay, it would be liver. Okay, because liver is just so. I try and eat liver once a week. Some people are really squeamish about liver because they were traumatized at school. Yeah, you know, school. Yeah, you chime with that, Ness. Yeah, you get given liver, badly cooked, disgusting liver at primary school. That's you
I never had that, actually, thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. But liver it's God's gift to nutrition. Okay, if you have too much of it, you'll get squitty. Yeah. There's San Francisco Raw. There's a wonderful woman there, San Francisco Raw. If you don't know about her, check her out on YouTube, check her out on Instagram. And she says bones bind, liver loosens. And so you can kind of balance. If you've got a slightly constipated dog, you just up the liver a little bit. If you've got the dog is eating well and the gut is healthy and you need to just firm things up, you just increase the bone a little bit. The beauty of the raw food is that you're in charge of the ingredients, and you can manipulate them because everybody's different. Yeah. There's a study by a guy called Tim Spector, and he looks at identical twins, and because he was a geneticist, he's doing loads of nutrition work now. He is very pro plants, but then there you go. You know, Saladino says one thing and Spector says another. That's science. Yeah, it's a discussion. It's ongoing. And Tim Spector said he looks at two identical twins and he found there's only a 38% match for the microbiome. Yeah, because even the identical twins growing up in the same household. Yeah, because different diet, different antibiotic use. Yeah, maybe one twin got laryngitis and had to have antibiotics when they were young, and so we get this differential. So it is impossible to predict what's going to work, the minutiae of what's going to work for your dog, but you start with a simple general diet, and then you can tweak it. A little bit more fat, a little bit less fat, a little bit more bone, a little bit less bone. Most dogs do well on about 10%, but some need up to 20%. Some need maybe 5%. So your dog will tell you. And
playing around with it.
yeah, the microbiome will adjust to will normalize to the raw meat diet, and off you go. You know, they don't take care of themselves. I always say to clients, the best vet is the vet you don't need to see. And so that's who I want to be for my clients. Yeah, we see them, we fix the dog, we move on. And in many cases we do that. We can't fix everybody, unfortunately. But for me, which is kind of coming full circle, I don't think you can have health unless you've got a great diet. And for me, for a dog, it's a raw food diet. If it's lightly cooked, I'm good with that. But generally speaking, I would say 95% of dogs do great on raw food, really enjoy it. They love it, and they within 2 weeks you can see it's the right thing for that.
So Sharonica asks, how effective is the seaweed supplement on loosening tartar and plaque?
It can be useful. Yeah, it can be useful. Connor does one called Canident. I'm not sure what you've got in Australia, but he's got a nice product. Yeah, it can be, but I think some physical removal using bones. The best way to treat tartar is to not get it in the first place, and the trick there is to try and get your dog onto bones as early as possible. If you get your puppy at 8 weeks, that's not too late at all to start with primary school bones. Yeah, the soft end of the bone spectrum. Lindy says,
South Africa. Woo-hoo.
Great. I'd love to go to South Africa. Yeah, there's really, really beautiful. And those guys, they innately know how to feed dogs, because they only got the ultra processed thing kind of in the 90s or so. And I'll tell you a story. I heard from a South African vet. Cats get hyperthyroidism, high thyroid disease. Yeah. Nobody in South Africa had seen hyperthyroidism, and therefore nobody knew how to do the surgery to do it until the 90s, when ultra processed food came in and they were feeding pets on ultra processed food. It's a historical fact.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, isn't it? It's so obvious, but there you go. What percentage on average of daily rations should be vegetable, especially if green tripe isn't available? I usually go 5 to 15%, and I would be really strongly looking at the fermented vegetables and lightly cooked. I would go that way. Saladino has convinced me that is plants don't want to be eaten. Okay, so I'm kind of going in that direction.
Wow, that's I've heard several UK nutritionists suggest that it is too easy for homemade diets to be inadequate, and yet I have been feeding a mixed raw diet for years without consulting a nutritionist to see if it is balanced and complete. Am I doing the wrong thing?
Okay. Well, you feed yourself without a nutritionist, so it's not that difficult. This is the terror thing, okay, which comes from the corporation, I believe. And if you feed variety is the ingredient that doesn't go in the bowl. Okay, you feed variety, and as long as you get those macronutrients, you get an adequate fat, an adequate protein, adequate bone, and what have you, which is all there. If you look at the web, if you look at my my video, raw feeding, the basics on my site, or any other source of good nutrition information. There's lots of books out there now. Just get the basics, and if you do variety, you're not going to give excess or a deficiency of zinc or copper or fat or whatever it might be. Okay, so I would say, well done you. There is, as far as I'm concerned, here you go. I'm going to put you on the spot again here, Ness.
Oh no.
When was the last time you ate a balanced meal?
Oh, I don't know.
The answer is never. Okay, I won't let you squirm.
I try to be healthy, but I know I'm not. So
no,
yeah.
but what I'm saying is, even if it was bad, even if you happen to hit a balanced
Everything.
meal, a meal is thing you have in one sitting. Okay, even if it did happen, you wouldn't know, because it depends on the time of year for the calcium and magnesium content of that meat. So even if you got a nutritionist to put it together, then even the nutritionist cannot say that because they can't measure each individual food. That would be the only way to know that that was a balanced meal. That's ridiculous. And therefore, it is implicit that we just feed variety, getting the basics right. We feed variety and the dog does the rest. Okay. The whole idea that you can formulate one meal and then repeat that meal for life, I think is not a great idea. I do formulate diets, but I do say variety is the most important ingredient.
I think that's a really good point you made, actually, about the what nutrients are in the plant at that particular. It's like a dog in the wild. If they are going to eat vegetables or whatever, or some sort of plant, they can only choose what's there at the time. So it's really seasonal. So those plants are going to be healthier at different times of year. So yeah, as you say, you don't know what. Yeah, it's just a really good point. So yeah, I'll let you go.
Okay, so another Facebook user, hello, says about kimchi, not too salty. I would not get a sauerkraut with added salt. Yeah, it's salty. It turns into, because the minerals are transformed in the fermentation process. So you put a certain amount of magnesium and calcium in the form of cabbage, and those are just transformed by the bugs, and thus you can taste. It will change the taste of the product. Yeah, you're not adding salt. You don't need to add salt when you ferment. For humans, you can choose to add a bit of salt, but you don't actually need to. If you do salt-free kimchi, salt-free fermented cabbage and vegetables, then they will take care of themselves, and you don't need to add salt.
Cool. Chicken, duck, especially food, grass. Yes, please. Not so much beef liver.
Chicken, duck, especially food, grass. Yes, please. Not so much beef liver. I'm not quite sure what that means. Do you want to say it again? Our friend, chicken friend.
Chicken friend. Okay, we'll come back and see if they comment again. A lot of people who feed raw add supplements to the dog's meals. Are there any supplements you would recommend not to add?
Yeah, the ideal diet, when you're feeding variety, you don't need a supplement. The only one that really is necessary, I think, if you're feeding a great base diet, would be omega-3s. These are krill oil or herring or sardine or even salmon oil, not farmed, but salmon oil for omega-3s. And the reason for that is not because of the diet, it's because of the farming. If, say, in the States, a lot of the meat comes from CAFO, concentrated animal feed operations, okay, where they just stuff them with grain, grow them quickly, and get them into McDonald's as soon as they can. Okay, they're unhealthy, they've got metabolic disease, and the meat is not good. And it is very high, because of the grains, it's very high in omega-6. And omega-6 is necessary because you need inflammatory processes. But if you have an excess, you have an excess of inflammatory processes. The guy to watch for omega-6, I've just discovered him, is a guy called Chris Knobe, Knobbe, Chris Knobe. Jump into omega-6. You'll see him on YouTube, and he just does a lightning presentation. It's just amazing. Another Aussie who I really like, Dr. Paul Mason. Check him out on YouTube. It just means that I don't know, if you're having a dinner or something, you're just thinking, oh, what can I do? You shouldn't actually watch anything when you're having a dinner. You should concentrate on your food, and you will digest better and you will eat less. But if you are, rather than watching Netflix, check out some of these guys. There's some other amazing. So Saladino is great. Dr. Robert Lustig is great to watch. Saladino is dynamite. Dr. Paul Mason, the Aussie, he can deliver a lecture, that's for sure. You can get Canident in Australia. Okay, great. There you go. Connor's done his done his due diligence and just getting it out to the Aussies. That's really, really good. So I'm going to have to run very soon, guys. But just
one more.
Finish with Lindy. I have 7 dogs and 4 cats. Wow, you're a glutton for punishment. No, you're actually pretty sensible. Cost of buying raw prepackaged foods is probably 4 times higher than supposedly high quality kibble. Yeah, but you pay peanuts. That's what you get. It does not necessarily cost more if you're feeding a reasonable quality of kibble, and you do DIY. I know people who've got big dogs, like 30-kilo Labradors. They've got them down to like 60p a day, which is 70 euros, which would be, I'm not sure in Australian what that would be.
$1.20, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you can, but when you start, just talk to the people. Thing is, if you've got 7 dogs and 4 cats, there is a cost involved in that, and some of that cost, if you're feeding kibble, will involve vets. I absolutely guarantee it. Bad teeth, bad gut, bad skin, and what have you. Yeah, hot spots, all these kind of things. If you go raw, my experience and the experience of talking to thousands of people is that you see the vet a lot less. Okay, so that whole cost is removed, and that's got to be a good thing, because pharmaceuticals are great. I'm not anti-pharmaceuticals, but you wouldn't want them on your cornflakes. Avoid pharmaceuticals at every turn if you possibly can.
Yeah, that's a nice note to leave it on. And I'm going to put your
good. A mixed diet over time. Yeah, so sensible bowl for every meal and variety. Like you feed your kids, you're going to be absolutely fine. Take advice, be sensible, but don't get swept up. I need to go, but on Instagram, don't be food shamed by those amazing bowls that people put up. Just get it in the bowl and get it in the dog.
Yeah, that's for sure. Before you go, that's your website again, holisticvet.co.uk. What can people find on there, Dr. Nick?
They can find 2 vids. One is raw feeding the basics. Does what it says on the tin. 10 short 10-minute lessons which gets you up to speed with understanding the raw thing. The other one is bones and how to feed them. Does what it says on the tin. It just takes you through that primary or kindergarten, primary school, secondary school, college. Great. Happy dogs, happy owners, happy teeth, happy bowels, happy everything. So there you go. Listen, it's a wonderful world, and there's a lot of really great people. You'll find that if you meet raw feeders, you immediately have got this point of contact, and you greet them like long lost brothers and sisters. It's a wonderful family, and I invite anybody to join that family.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nick. We will be looking out for your book when it comes out.
Give me 6 months. Give me 6 free months. Give me 6 free months, and I would deliver that. But I'm just trying to think of ways that I can get these ideas out in a book. Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate it, Ness. And listen, you keep on going, feeding your dogs raw and guiding people in Australia and around the world. That's absolutely fantastic. It's so important. Yeah, you can't be healthy unless you're eating a great diet.
Yeah. I shall let you go. Get on with your day. I'm ending mine now. So thank you so much, very much.
Yeah.
It's great to talk to you and get, help people take that first step. It's really important.
Everybody's terrified, guys. Just do it. Yeah. Jump in. Take advice from your supplier, from your vet, if you're lucky enough to have a raw vet. From knowledgeable friends, and don't get freaked out by the people who say, "Oh, it's complicated. You've got to feed this and this and this." At its basics, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thanks. Good to see you again. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. All the best, and good luck with everybody.